Hi, good morning. In this video, I'm going to be working through the Chapter 2 Quiz 2 study guide. So let's begin. The first question has us finding the derivative of y with respect to x, but we're not given y in terms of x. Instead, we're given an equation that contains both x and y. And so this is a question that calls for implicit differentiation. So basically, we are going to take the derivative of both sides of the equation with respect to x. As so. So I'm going to take the derivative of the left side with respect to x. And also the right side. Okay, so I have to be very careful when I'm taking the derivative with respect to x that I'm going to use chain rule whenever I encounter anything that contains a y. And so this is what I mean. So for this x to the power of 7 here, that derivative with respect to x is just going to be 7x to the power of 6 by power rule, right? So that's 7 times x to the power of 6. Then the derivative of 10x is 10. And then for 7xy here I'm going to use product rule. So the derivative with respect to x, first I'm going to take the derivative of the 7x here while leaving the y alone. And so the derivative of 7x is just 7. So I'm going to do 7 multiplied by the right side left alone, so 7y. Okay, then I have to add, and this time I'm going to leave the left side alone, so 7x is going to remain the same, but now the right side is going to, I have to differentiate the right side. So it's going to be 7x times dy dx. Right? Remember that I'm taking a derivative with respect to x, and y is a function of x. And finally, I have the derivative of y to the power of 8. So first, I'm going to take the derivative of the kind of outside function, which is the power of 8. And so that's going to leave me with 8 times y to the power of 7, just by power rule. But then by chain rule, I also have to take the derivative with respect to x of the inside function, which is y, right? I have to remember that I'm not taking a derivative with respect to y, I'm actually taking a derivative with respect to x. And so that means I have to additionally also multiply by dy dx. Okay, so the derivative of y to the power of 8 is going to be 8 times y to the 7th times dy dx. And finally, the right side is a constant, so it's going to be equal to 0, its derivative. Okay, so I'm still looking for dy dx, which means that I have to isolate it somehow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor all the terms that contain dy dx, and then move all the other terms to the right side. So that leaves me with 7x minus 8 times y to the power of 7 times dy dx. I've just factored these two terms here. And then I'm going to move all the other terms to the right side. So that's minus 7x to the 6th minus 7y minus 10. And finally, I'm just going to divide both sides by that factor on the left side, which leaves me with dy dx equals minus 7x to the power of 6 minus 7y minus 10 over 7x minus 8y to the 7th. Okay, so now the hard part, well, not hard, but a little tricky, right, is comparing with the answer choices and seeing what matches. And that might require some simplification or manipulation. So if I look closely, nothing quite matches. And so it seems like I'm probably going to have to multiply both top and bottom by -1. The reason for that is because all the answer choices seem to have all these plus signs, right, in the numerator. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by -1. That's going to leave me with 7x to the 6th plus 7y plus 10 over 8y to the 7th minus 7x. Okay, and now you can see that it matches answer choice D. Let's move on. Here is another question involving implicit differentiation. So I'm going to take a derivative of both sides with respect to x. Okay. So, sorry, the right side also needs to be differentiated, right? I forgot about that. All right, so the derivative of sine is cosine. It's very important to have all those memorized, all the trig derivatives. And then for here, I'm going to have to use chain rule because I have several functions that are composed with each other, right? On the very outside, I have a cosine, and then in the middle, I have a 7, and then finally on the inside, I have a function of y of x. So the derivative is going to be, I'm going to first take the derivative of the outside function and leave the inside alone. So it's going to be minus 6 sine 7y, because the derivative of cosine is negative sine. So I've taken the derivative of the outside with the inside left alone, and then I need to multiply by the derivative of the inside. So it's going to be 6 sine 7y times 7 dy dx, because that's the derivative of 7y. And finally, the right side is equal to 0 because it's a constant. All right, so I can simplify a little bit. I'm going to move the cosine to the right side so that I can isolate the dy dx. So I'm left with negative 42 sine 7y dy dx is equal to negative cosine x. So finally, that means dy dx. The negatives cancel, and I'm left with cosine x over 42 sine 7y. That's my answer. And so that means part B is my answer. Answer B. Choice B is my answer. Cosine x over 42 sine 7y. Let's go to question 3. Here's a simple derivative. I'm looking for the derivative of f with respect to v. And so here I'm going to use product rule. So I'm going to take the derivative of the first factor and leave the second factor alone. And then I'm going to add the first one left alone times the derivative of the second one. So the derivative of v to the power 5 is just 5v to the 4th. And so using product rule, I have to leave the second part alone. So 5v to the 4th times cosine v. And then I'm going to add, here I'm going to leave the first factor alone, so v to the power 5, and then multiply by the derivative of the second factor, which is negative sine v. So that is my answer. I'll simplify a little bit.
This is the junior high 5-minute warning bell. Please head to class.
It's very loud. All right, and so that is my answer. 5v to the 4th cosine v minus v to the 5th sine v. And what does that match with? Looks like that matches with part C. Answer choice C. Next question. Here I'm looking for a second derivative. And so a second derivative just means taking the derivative twice. So the first derivative is going to be f prime of x. Here I'm going to use power rule. So I'm going to multiply the front by the power. The 5 can just be left alone because it's a constant coefficient. So 5 times 6 over 7 times x raised to the power of 6/7 minus 1. So 6 over 7 minus 1, just by power rule. And that I can simplify as 30 over 7 times x to the negative 1/7. Okay? Now I'm looking for a second derivative, which means that I have to do this again. So f double prime of x is going to be 30 over 7 multiplied by negative 1/7 by power rule times x to the power of negative 1/7 minus 1. I can simplify that. That leaves me with negative 30 over 49 times x to the negative 8/7. So that will be my answer. Choice E. Next, I'm asked to find the slope of the graph of the function at the given value. And so the slope of the graph is just the value of the derivative at that particular value of x, right? So first I need to differentiate f, and so that leaves me with negative 4x by power rule. And then here, let me first rewrite this as negative 2x squared plus 3 times x to the power of negative 2. That's always a good first step whenever you have a fraction with the power on the denominator, is to convert it to a negative power instead. That way we don't have to use quotient rule, we can just use power rule. So the derivative is negative 4x, and then plus 3 times negative 2, so negative 6x to the power of negative 3, just by power rule. Okay, negative 6x times to the power of negative 3. And so all I need to do to find the slope of the graph at this value is to plug in x equals 3. So that leaves me with negative 4 times 3 minus 6 times 3 to the power of negative 3. And so that is negative 12 minus 6 over 27. Okay, because 3 cubed is 27, so that means 3 to the negative 3 is going to be 1 over 27. Got it? So I can simplify that fraction. It's negative 12 minus 2 over 9, because 6 is 2 times 3, and 27 is 9 times 3. So that leaves me with, can simplify this a little more, negative 108 minus 2 over 9. Sorry, that's a little unclear. Both are negative, right? And so the answer is negative 110 over 9. So that's choice E. Next question. Here I have to use chain rule because I have functions that are kind of on top of or outside of each other. All right, the outside function is a power of 6, and the inside function is an s cubed plus 4. So first I'm going to take the derivative of the outside function while leaving the inside alone. So f prime of s is equal to 6 times s cubed plus 4 to the 5th power. I'm taking the derivative of the power of 6 while leaving the inside alone. And then finally I'm going to multiply by the derivative of the inside, which is just 3s squared. And the 4 is going to have a derivative of 0, so that can be ignored. And so after a little simplification, that's just 18s squared times s cubed plus 4 to the power of 5. Looks like that is going to be... Looks like that is going to... No, that's not part A. It's answer E. Wow, these are very hard to differentiate. So you better look very closely. Okay. Next, this is also chain rule, actually. But you could do it also using quotient rule. I'll do it both ways, just to make it clear to you. So we could do it first using chain rule. Because we can rewrite this actually as f of t equals 7 times t minus 1 to the power of negative 1, right? And so that's clearly a composition of two functions that we know the derivatives of. And so f prime of t is just going to be negative 7 by power rule times t minus 1 to the power of negative 2. And then the derivative of the inside, which is t minus 1, that's just going to be 1, because the 1 is a derivative of 0 and t has a derivative of 1. And so can just multiply by 1 on the outside, and so that doesn't change anything. And so that means that this is my derivative. And so I'm looking for the derivative at the value t equals 4, right? And so that means I need to plug in t equals 4, so f prime of 4 equals negative 7 times 4 minus 1, which is 3 to the power of negative 2. And so that's just negative 7 over 9, right? Because I have a power of negative 2, so that's a 1 over 3 squared. Okay, so that means my answer is negative 7 over 9, right here. I could have also done this using quotient rule, because I do have a fraction here, right? And so f prime of t is just going to be low d high minus high d low. So t minus 1, low d high, derivative of 7 is 0, so t minus 1 times 0, minus high d low, so minus 7 times the derivative of t minus 1, which is 1, all over low squared, so t minus 1 squared. And that simplified is just negative 7 over t minus 1 squared. And you can verify that these are the exact same, so we get the same answer. Let's do the next one, question 8. Looks like there's a typo here, huh? This is supposed to be f prime of v. So we're going to take the derivative using quotient rule here. Not really a better way than that, so let's just do this. We're going to do low d high minus high d low. So low v squared plus 7 times d high, derivative of the top is just 1, because it's 5 plus v, so that's 0 plus 1, minus high d low, so the derivative of the bottom is 2v plus 0, so that's 2v, all over low squared, so v squared plus 7 squared. And so if I expand the top, I'm left with v squared plus 7 minus, it's very important to have these parentheses here, otherwise you're going to get the minus signs wrong, minus 10v minus plus 2v squared. Okay, without these parentheses, it will be wrong, because what we have to do next is actually distribute this minus sign across both terms, right? So I'm left with v squared plus 7 minus 10v minus 2v squared, all over v squared plus 7 squared. Okay, and so that leaves me with, if I combine both of these v squareds, that leaves me with 7 minus 10v minus v squared, all over v squared plus 7 squared. Let's see if anything matches. Oh, that's just choice A, right? Okay, and so if you had mistakenly not put these parentheses here, if you had not used those, then you would have gotten okay, good news, you wouldn't have gotten any of these choices, so you would have realized your mistake. But make sure you don't do that on the test. Okay, next question. How many are there? That's a lot. Okay, next question. This is just chain rule. So f prime of t, the outside function is the power of 2/5, right? So we're going to take the derivative of the outside, so that brings the 2/5 to the front. We're going to leave the inside alone, so 4 plus 7t, and then 2/5 minus 1 is negative 3/5. Okay, so that's the derivative of the outside. And then we're going to do the inside, so the derivative is 0 plus 7, right? Because the derivative of 4 is 0, and the derivative of 7t is 7. It's all multiplied by 7. So simplifying that, that's 14 over 5 times 4 plus 7t to the power of negative 3/5. That is choice A. Okay, here is both product rule and chain rule. So first I'm going to do product rule. So I'm going to split this into two factors, x to the power of 8 and this thing here. So we're going to have the derivative of the first factor with the second left alone. So that's 8 times x to the 7th, okay? 8 times x to the 7th times 6 plus 9x to the 7th. Okay, left the second factor alone. And then I'm going to add and leave the first one alone, but take the derivative of the second part. So I'm going to have x to the power of 8. But then when I take the derivative of the second factor, I'm going to have to use chain rule. So it's going to be 7 times 6 plus 9x to the 6, right? I just took the derivative of the outside function, which is the power of 7. And then I need to multiply by the derivative of the inside function, which is the 6 plus 9x. And so that derivative is just 9. Okay? Unfortunately, none of this matches, so I'm going to have to do some simplification. So it looks like my answers all have factored this 6 plus 9x out from both terms. And so that means that I'm going to have to factor, I'm going to have to factor out this x to the 7th and also this 6 plus 9x to the power of 6. Okay, so here's what that's going to look like. X to the 7th, because that's kind of like their greatest common factor, right? So x to the 7th plus 6 plus 9x times 6 plus 9x to the power of 6 is their greatest common factor. And then I'm going to see what remains after I factor this from both terms here. So the left side, the left term, I'm going to be left with 8 times 6 plus 9x, right? That is because I've taken out this x to the 7th times 6 plus 9x to the power of 6, and I'm left with this. Because here I have a power of 7, whereas I'm taking a power of 6 here, taking out a power of 6. Okay, and then the right term, I'm going to be left with, right, the 7 times 9, so that's 63. And then if I take out a x to the 7th, I'm just going to be left with an x here. And then this 6 plus 9x to the power of 6, that totally disappears because I've factored it out completely. And so that's all I'm left with. Now if I simplify this more, I'm left with this. 48, right, 8 times 6, plus 72x, plus 63x. So that is 135x. 72 plus 63, yeah. Okay, so my answer is x to the 7th times 6 plus 9x to the 6 plus 3. Okay, looks like choice A. Hopefully that's right. Next question. This is chain rule. My outside function is a 9 times cosine, and my inside function is a 2x. So the derivative is negative 9 sine 2x. All right, the derivative of cosine is negative sine. And then the derivative of the inside, the 2x, is just going to be 2. So that's going to be multiplied at the end. And so that leaves me with negative 18 sine 2x. Looks like choice D. Question 12 is a implicit differentiation question. So I'm going to take the derivative of both sides with respect to x. Okay, so that is going to give me 2x plus, and here I have to use chain rule because I have a function of y, which is also a function of x. So that's 2x plus 2y times dy dx by chain rule. Then the right side is just 0 because 9 is a constant. So that means 2y times dy dx equals negative 2x. So dy dx is equal to negative x over y, which is choice A. Last question, looks like, is going to have me using product rule. So f prime of v is going to be 3v squared, so derivative of the first factor, but I have to leave the second one alone, so 3v squared times tangent of v, plus, leaving the first one alone, v cubed times the derivative of the second part, which is secant squared of v. So that looks like it's going to be choice D. Okay, so that concludes this video. Hope it was helpful, and good luck on the quiz.